So I've been playing a lot of Fire Emblem Engage, and it's time for me to throw my hat into the ring because I've seen a wide variety of opinions ranging from it's too goofy, not serious enough, or the gameplay's so fantastic that it makes up for the kind of like goofy shenanigans that the characters and the overall story goes for. But then there's also that side saying actually the story's not too bad and they try to like justify certain areas. Overall, the easiest way I can sum up this game, some of the most fun tactical gameplay I've experienced in a long time, with some of the cheesiest dialogue that I've experienced in a long time. But as someone who likes cheese, this game did speak to me, but I'm not here to say that this game doesn't have some very goofy shenanigans, but it also does have some nice heart-tugging moments as well. And as someone who's very new to the Fire Emblem world, now I love Three Houses, I've played every single route multiple times, it's one of my personal favorite games. And as someone who, the most recent Fire Emblem game I played was Fire Emblem Warriors Three Hopes, which was the Warriors spin-off that used the Three Houses characters, I found myself just really excited for this one, but kind of worried because I've never experienced the Fire Emblem fandom building up to a game, so I wasn't really sure what all the hubbub was about because I was seeing people say Toothpaste Chan looked a little too goofy. How are we going to take him or her serious when it just looks like a tube of toothpaste? And I'm just looking at the character prior to the game release and saying, honestly, Fire Emblem is some of the most anime things I've ever experienced in games. The overtop designs, the goofy personalities, I mean, it just kind of fits in my opinion. The only thing really about the character design of the main character, the Divine Dragon, that little threw me off was the multicolored eyes, and that's just because when you're focused right in on him or her, depending on if you play as male or female, I find it can be a little distracting, but the multiple hair color thing never really bothered me like it did for the internet. To me, it's one of those games where if you sit down expecting to take everything dead serious, you're probably going to be a little let down. And I think in general, Three Houses, it played more into the serious with a goofy side to it, where this game, I almost feel like it plays into the goofier side with elements of seriousness spread throughout. The general idea for the story is you play as the Divine Dragon, and there's the Fell Dragon, and the Fell Dragon's up to no good. It's stealing the emblem rings and trying to bring about chaos. The emblem rings being summons, so different heroes from different Fire Emblem games that you use alongside you, and in general, it's a pretty typical fine story. The thing that really becomes a little more silly with it, which truthfully, me saying this, I'm not using it as an insult, but I do recognize the characters will just be absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there's literally moments, like I'm gonna avoid as many spoilers as possible, but the thing is at one point you go to this one area where you're just trying to collect the ring because, well, you need the ring in order to defeat the big bad. And the queen is basically like, I don't know where I put it. Maybe it's like in the doodad drawer. And you're just kind of sitting there like, so you're telling me one of the most powerful rings that we need and you possess, you just casually threw it in a drawer? What are you doing? Like, that's the type of humor and the goofy aura that this game radiates. But does it also have those elements of heart-tugging sorrow? Oh, absolutely. Without giving an exact specific, because in case anyone wants to experience this as fresh as possible, there's moments where you get connected to a character, and then in a very typical sense, a battle happens and said character doesn't make it. And, you know, the characters in question, you feel for their sorrow. What this game does is it tries to make a story built around these over-the-top personalities, and in general, are you going to really develop all the characters as equal as maybe some games? No. A lot of times, their support conversations, they're about tea. It's not an exaggeration. A lot of times, half of the supports with their emblems and stuff are just talking about teas and foods, but in general, like, you'll have a handful of characters that really develop outside the box in ways that maybe you didn't expect to really like. An example is Ivy. I was expecting her to just be exactly who she was the whole time, but honestly, diving into a story like hers, I found myself really enjoying that, or even character like Louie and stuff. So there's these characters that do really develop, but in a lot of ways, I mean, what you see may be what you get for most of the game. But I think what this game did a really good job with is it made me say, I like the general idea of the story, I like pretty much any character I'm following, and because they constantly throw new units at you that you can use in your missions, it just, honestly, it was a fun time start to finish, and I really enjoyed my stay. The big thing is gameplay, right? And I think gameplay is the thing that was universally agreed upon, was that the gameplay is absolutely fantastic. One of the biggest changes that I really enjoy was comparing the map design from Three Houses to this. I find myself appreciating Engage a bit more because it's a lot more open. So there's moves in this game that can wipe out an entire army. That's not an exaggeration. There's times where you'll do a charge attack that just goes through 10 people if they're lined up in the right way. And in general, if you were to take that same mechanic and put it in 3 houses, it would be a lot more easy to exploit because characters, you can kind of funnel them into just locked up rooms or a lot more narrow corridors, where I find with Engage's map design, it's just open. So characters, you can't just hope that one character you can throw your best unit who's a tank and will dodge every move and one hit everyone, throw them in the top right corner with the big bad, and just call it a day. No, the characters will move around, and I think it's a lot harder to get chokeholds, and in doing so makes for a more tactical experience. And the fact that whenever you use a character in this game, the terrain will actually change the way the character attacks. So if you're on top of a staircase and they're below, the character's animation and the way they go about attacking will actually change compared to someone who's in quicksand or maybe are in the sky. They actually go really hard into the character animations, and in terms of the actual tactical gameplay, the ring mechanics actually were a lot more interesting than I was first expecting. So you basically summon these different heroes from different titles of the Fire Emblem universe. It doesn't really matter if the emblem kind of matches up with the character. So if the character is a sword wielder and the emblem you're using is a sword wielder, while that definitely benefits, you can throw a bow wielder on a sword character and it will actually give them a bit more of an advantage because now they can actually strike from a distance. I just found myself just having fun by giving every character the emblem at one point, just saying, I wonder what's going to happen if I give this emblem to so-and-so, and just the way it would change up the gameplay. While I really enjoyed certain character pairings and their support conversations building, I had a lot more fun just building around the idea of who would work best with who, and honestly, it was just fun constantly changing the classes, the pairings, and seeing where it goes. They do have a mechanic that's a little gacha. I know this was a big worry for people prior to the game releasing. So there isn't any in-game purchases outside of DLC, but there is this like gacha element within the game. So you can build these rings. So you use basically this currency that you get from just doing general tasks or collecting in the world, and you can basically build 1 to 10 rings at a time depending for each of the heroes. And you'll get a random selection rated from the lowest all the way up to S. And depending on which character you got a ring for, it will increase different stats. So there is a little bit of a gamble mechanic there, but it's not something that's intrusive that ruins anything. I mean, not every character at all points will have an emblem with them, so you try to build a nice ring that complements what they're doing. Maybe you want to have a more luck mechanic, so you try to get Tiki's ring, and just in general, like if you give it to a character like Anna, who she has an ability that if she kills someone, she has a very high chance of getting gold back, so you want to kind of build around that, right? So there is a little bit of a gamble mechanic, but nothing that ruins it in any way, and the fact that you can use it all within the in-game currency, it's completely fine. The biggest thing that I found to be a bit of a hindrance to this game and my biggest downgrade to it is the hub world that you go to. Now, I know 3 Houses was a bit of a coin toss of people saying the monastery was too big, there was too much to do, and honestly, it just felt like it was a little convoluted. Now, I think Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes solved that issue. It was about half the size, there was still enough mechanics that made it interesting, and it felt like it was full of life. But when you come to this game, it just feels like so many mechanics are there for no reason. Like if you want to, as an example, change the difficulty, you have to go to your room and click on the bed. If you want to go and train, yes, going to the tower to train or going to a blacksmith to upgrade your equipment, that's all well and fine. But there's so many little mechanics that you have to wonder, why can't it just be in a menu? Why did you have to add it? And the reason is because they wanted to make it feel a little more like you had that social element. But the social element's so downgraded here that it just feels like, because clearly it was different teams working on these games, it just feels like they had a different vision. And for someone who, well, agrees that maybe Fire Emblem 3 Houses had a little too large of a monastery, Warriors 3 Hopes literally had the perfect version of that hub world where you get the social element, you get the extra little details, but you don't spread everything out. Like, honestly, the only reason you use the farm so you can adopt animals in this game, but it's honestly not as cool as it sounds, you basically just set up dogs. The reason being is because dogs will drop ores, which you use to upgrade your equipment. There's literally no reason to use any other animal other than dogs, and the only reason I would come back to that hub world every single time, whether I finish a skirmish or not, is because I needed to check on the dogs and collect my ore. So there's just a lot of little details that just feel like they're there to try to encourage that social element, but are they really that compelling? No. But there is some cute ideas, like you have this weird cat dog thing that will follow you around, and honestly just the fact that even when I warp around different locations, because who's actually going to walk to each location, just to hear his little footsteps in the background kind of clomping along trying to get back to me, I quite enjoyed that. So Fire Emblem Engage, is it the absolute best game I've ever played? No, but is it one of the stronger strategy games in terms of gameplay design, incredible animation, some fun voice acting, great music design? Absolutely. The story, while cheesy, does have those emotional, heart-tugging moments, but it isn't really the thing that defines it. I find that, yes, by the midway point, the game does get more serious, but like I mentioned, even by the midway point, you're still finding characters being goofy, like I threw the most important ring in my possession in the doodad drawer. It is goofy, and if you don't like cheese, yes, the story might be a bit of an eye roll, but I think if that is how you feel, the gameplay more than makes up for it, because the gameplay is just so solid. There's a lot of tactical decisions you can make, and in general, you just are going to have a grand time playing it. But if you are someone like me who enjoys cheese and can enjoy the goofiness and laugh alongside it, in general, this will be one of the stronger games I think you might be able to play this year. And while I do think there's room for improvement, I just see no reason why you should have to go to your bed to change difficulties if you're just pulling your hair out and you get to a moment. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me personally. But there are little quality of life changes I would have made, but in general, I've been having a fun time, and I want to replay it. I want to see, different playstyles that I didn't consider. And in general, I mean, I'm a fan of Fire Emblem. I liked what Three Hopes did. I like what Three Houses did. I like what Engage does. They keep making them. I'm going to keep playing them. But yeah, I just want to throw my hat in the ring. I've seen a lot of things, and honestly, I feel like both sides got a little too extreme in terms of loving or hating this game. I think it's a great game, but that's just my feelings anyway. But if you've been playing Fire Emblem Engage, what did you think of it? Favorite character? Personally, for me, Ivy, Chloe, I really like both of them quite a bit, but Louis, he was my boy. He kept me going throughout that entire game, I gotta admit. He was a tank. But thoughts and feelings yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Consider supporting the Patreon. You get early access to videos like these, video shoutouts, a bunch of other fun things as well. So yeah, take care everyone, and have a good one.